If I put you on the spot right now and ask you to say 10 sentences in your target language without looking them up, could you do it? Be honest, because if the answer is no, whatever you've been doing to learn that language has been a waste of time. Maybe not all of it, but most of it. Here's the question everyone asks me. What's the most time-efficient way to actually learn to speak a language? I'm talking about being able to open your mouth and speak the language confidently and fluently, without freezing like a deer in the headlights, without having to stop and think every 5 seconds and without translating in your head. What's the best way to develop that skill? I get this question all the time from people who are actually serious about language learning, disciplined people who are willing to do the work. And my answer is always the same. Unfortunately, 99% of you will never do it because it's hard work. It's a pretty hard exercise. It's exhausting, it's difficult, frustrating, but it's also brutally effective. And if you do this daily, in a matter of weeks, you'll be speaking the language. This is the difference between people who pretend to learn a language for years and years and never get anywhere. They do things like so-called immersion. They use apps that are gamified and are basically a video game disguised as learning. People who do that kind of stuff and people who learn seriously and get results fast. This is the difference. Hard work. So if you are serious about language learning, listen carefully because this exercise is a game changer. And if you want to watch Netflix and YouTube videos in the language and do all of that, by all means, go ahead and do it. But that alone is not going to make you fluent. This exercise, on the other hand, will. Because this is, according to neuroscience, the most effective way to learn anything, not just languages. This is how world-class performers train their brain in any skill, not just languages. And the concept is extremely simple to explain, but difficult to implement and extremely powerful if you actually do it. But before I explain this, you need to understand one thing. Almost everything you've been told about language learning is either incomplete or, at worst, actively keeping you stuck. This is why 90% or more of language learners never learn to speak. If you're making these mistakes, you really need to stop because it's wasting your time. Massively. Let's start with a big, fat, stupid elephant in the room. Comprehensible input. Learning a language by watching videos. Yes, reading and listening to the language a lot does help. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't, but it mostly helps you maintain what you already know and do spaced repetition with it. It is not very effective when it comes to learning new stuff, and you'll have to learn a lot of new stuff when learning a language, especially in the beginning. There's also the fact that you don't learn to speak a language by listening or watching videos. You learn to speak by speaking. It's obvious when you say it out loud, but a lot of people don't want to believe that. A lot of people these days want to believe that you can acquire skills without actually doing anything. And that never worked. So if you want to get good at speaking the language, you should definitely do as much speaking practice as possible. And yes, this includes speaking to native speakers as much as possible and as often as possible. But this alone is not enough. You need complementary exercises as well. Because most of the time, when you speak to native speakers, you don't get corrected. People tend to be polite. They let mistakes slide. They just nod and move on because once they understand you, that's good enough. So you keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again for years. And you don't even realize you're making them. And also, in order to be able to speak to native speakers, you need access to them. And yes, this is easier in this day and age, but you still have to set up appointments, go out and actually talk to real people. And those are all bottlenecks that will slow you down if you only count on doing that. So here's the actual solution. Active recall. Retrieval practice. Translation into your target language with feedback. This is fast, this is time efficient, and you can do it anytime, anywhere. You translate from your language into the target language, you make as many mistakes as physically possible, and you get corrected every single time. So every day you'll make fewer and fewer mistakes. And if you're afraid of making mistakes in front of people in real conversations, this exercise will help you overcome that fear really fast. Because if you fail here, alone, you just have to do it again, and again, and again, until it becomes easy. And both your fluency and your confidence will skyrocket. Here's exactly how it works. You take a list of full sentences in your target language, ideally sentences you've already seen before, and ideally sentences that you actually want to use, sentences that are important, useful. Your own language islands are the best thing for this. You take those sentences and you review them a couple of times, and then you look at them in your native language and you try to say them out loud in the target language. No reading, no cheating, just you producing the target language from memory. And this will be extremely hard in the beginning. You won't be able to say it, or you'll say it and you'll make lots of mistakes. That's normal. That's how it works. You'll forget words, you'll make lots of grammar mistakes, you'll struggle to say the sentences, and you'll look at the right answers and you'll try again. And the next time will be easier and faster. And the third time you try it with the same sentences, you'll do it even faster and better, fewer mistakes. And the next time will be even better. You learn by testing yourself. Instant feedback. This is not about doing a test and getting your results later, or doing your homework and getting your teacher's red pen a week later. No, right now. You make the mistakes and you get instant feedback. You either know it or you don't, and you find out instantly. Let me show you how it works in real life. Say the sentence you're trying to learn is, I need to leave early tomorrow because I have a flight. You read it in English, you try to say it in your target language out loud, and of course it's a long sentence, so you struggle, or you don't know the word flight. So you freeze, and you have to think about it. In a real conversation, that'd be a problem. But here, you just have to look up the answer, and then try the same sentence again later. And next time you'll do it better, and you'll probably do it much faster as well. And you keep doing this with sentence after sentence, and you'll get better and better at it, and you'll be able to think faster and faster in the language. Every time you do it, you'll hesitate less. That's just your brain rewiring itself under pressure. Your brain is getting used to thinking in the language in real time. This rewiring doesn't happen when you're passively consuming content. You try, you fail, you get feedback, you try again. And every time you try, you do it faster and better. It gets easier. Do this enough times with enough sentences that are useful, and you'll be able to speak any language fluently. Conversations with native speakers will be easy because you've already said all those sentences aloud many times, and you made the mistakes and you got corrected. So you're fluent and confident. This exercise really punches above its weight because it trains 3 separate skills simultaneously at maximum intensity. First of all, you're working on your fluency. You're not only learning to recognize words when you see them. That's very easy, that's recognition. That's what you get with input. No. Here, you're training to think fast in the language, to come up with sentences on the spot, and to be able to deliver them convincingly under pressure. That's a completely different skill, and it has to be trained separately because recognition and retrieval are not the same thing. And you also train accuracy, sentence structures, grammar, all of that. You speak the language, you make mistakes, you get corrected constantly. You're constantly looking at the feedback in context, and you're trying again, and every time you make fewer mistakes. And you learn to use the grammar and the sentence structures without studying the rules. You learn to speak correctly. You identify and fix all the common mistakes you make. And because you're also saying the sentences out loud, you're also working on muscle memory. This is really important for fluency because speaking is a physical skill. It's not just knowledge of the language. Your mouth needs to be trained to speak the language, to produce the new sounds. And if all you do is read and listen to the language and watch videos or do grammar exercises, you're not practicing speaking. But if you're doing this exercise, you're constantly saying things out loud. This exercise builds the physical ability to produce the language, not just the mental map of the language that you get with input or grammar study. And the best part is that you can start doing this from day one. Complete beginner. Doesn't matter. You review the sentences a couple times, and then you immediately try to reproduce them from memory. And you will fail, of course. You'll think it's really, really difficult, but you try again and you'll do it slightly better. And you do it again and again and again. And after a few tries, you'll be able to say those sentences pretty well. Day 1. Language learning can really be this simple and fast. Not easy because it's hard work, but it can be made simple and fast. Efficient. You combine this exercise with repetitive listening and shadowing of the same sentences that you do in active recall with, and you'll be having conversations in a matter of weeks.